So why collaborate with insects? They outnumber us, we can't control them, and they don't share our values. The praying mantis often devours her mate. Yet without them, we wouldn't be here. Plants wouldn't be pollinated, the soil would rot, and the ecosystem would crash in a matter of months. So how do we repay them for supporting us? By hating them. As an artist, this is rich terrain. Insects are a window into the unimaginable. Their biology and behaviors are routinely bizarre and enigmatic. For me, they're refreshingly outside the human perspective. At the center of my artistic practice is the exploration between the dynamics of culture and nature. I'm particularly focused on the areas where the relationship is fraught and complex, as well as where it overlaps and illuminates. My work aims to give form to the richness as well as the brutality and indifference that often characterize our relationship with animals. I use the narrative possibilities of the visual arts to help bridge the increasing rift between humanity and the ecosystem. My hope is to bring the non-human back into the human world and to creatively re-engage with systems that support life on Earth. I believe our culture is far richer with the consideration and inclusion of other life forms. Over the decades, I have raised a cornucopia of insects, rodents, reptiles, and amphibians, and countless plants from my long-term multimedia projects. As always, I work with the animal's natural behavior. They are my collaborators. I respond, I watch, I experiment, and I adjust. Through this back and forth process, the projects take shape. Although I work at the intersection of art, science, and nature, a sense of wonder is what drives me and what I hope to convey. In the food chain series, I explored one of the basic engines of the ecosystem: to eat and be eaten. Caterpillars eating a tomato, a praying mantis eating a caterpillar, and a frog eating a praying mantis. As you can see, the praying mantis was undeterred by the presence of the frog. It hopped on its head to better survey its territory until the frog noticed it was there, and that was the end of the praying mantis. Here's the installation of the food chain series at Mass MoCA. The exhibition traveled for years, and I heard that viewers took sides, invariably rooting for the underdog. This was particularly true of the Pinkies series. Exactly. That featured a baby snake eating a baby mouse. I received a lot of hate mail for this, which seemed indicative of the disconnect between what people want to happen, between what people believe happens in nature and what actually does. Either the mouse gets eaten or the snake dies of starvation. There's no way around that, regardless of our opinions or sentiments. One museum director said to me, "Not in my museum," referring to the Pinkies series. Yet in the field outside the museums, snakes are applauded for eating mice and keeping so-called vermin in check. The American Cockroach Project, which I'm happy to be over with, was a 10-year investigation, yes, I raised them for 10 years, into our adversarial relationship with nature. I can think of few more animals more hated than the cockroach. But for me, it was a conduit to the negative and often violent relationship we have with the animal world. The American cockroach, Paraplaneta americana, was misnamed by Linnaeus. It actually comes from Africa and has followed us as we have colonized the globe. Our infrastructure is now its natural habitat. I photograph the roach life cycle in its current environment, our home. Eating, drinking. Besides being an excellent recycler, it can eat just about anything. And even though it has succeeded in surviving several mass extinctions, the roach is otherwise unremarkable. It's not venomous. It doesn't sting or bite or carry the dangerous pathogens that flies and mice regularly do. There is nothing life-threatening about the American cockroach. I have a theory that early Homo sapiens living in caves probably did not find the cockroach as objectionable as we do now. Certainly they had more dangerous animals to fear. Our hatred of the roach has perhaps grown in proportion to the walls we have erected between ourselves and the natural world. The roach is one of the few remaining species that can cross over at will and challenge those boundaries. At a fundamental level, I think their trespass upsets our confidence in our ability to successfully control and transform nature to suit our needs and desires. American cockroach sex. They stayed in this position for 45 minutes, which perhaps you would too if the female only mates once and then is pregnant for life. Consequently, she's very choosy about who she mates with. It took me forever to photograph this. My males were not up to snuff. And if she doesn't find a suitable mate, she'll just lay clones of herself. She's capable of parthenogenesis. It's a handy trick if you want to survive for millennia. Here is Cockroach Birth. 10 tiny transparent roaches hatch from a dark brown egg case, not much bigger than a grain of rice. And in the nursery, that I decorated with how we represent animals to children. I doubt that the roach is the most dangerous animal in this picture. And this was the best part. This is the American cockroach's final molt. It's a magical transformation from adolescence to adulthood. The roach can now mate and fly for the first time. So what are the aesthetics of our empathy towards animals? Would we like the cockroach better if it looked like a ladybug? Or a bird of paradise? People seem to prefer animals that are soft and furry, as opposed to hard and shiny. Animals with big eyes, as opposed to thin antennae. But what do these qualities have to do with the animal's importance in the ecosystem? It points to the subjectivity, perhaps arbitrariness, of how we think about animals in general. Yet these aesthetic judgments have real consequences. And what we don't like, we tend to kill or execute, though not usually by hanging, a gas chamber, or burning at the stake. Death ties us to the cockroach in a unique way. We kill them, they survive. We kill ourselves, they survive. My executions were enacted with already dead bugs. This series is not about the sufferings humans have endured at the hands of humans, but what other species are enduring because of us. I was happy to move to ants. Nearly every winter since 2008, I've been filming, photographing, and following the fates of more than a dozen colonies of leafcutter ants on the Osa Peninsula in Costa Rica. This project marks the first time I've worked in the wild, and I doubt I'll go back to the studio. To quote from the eminent biologist E.O. Wilson, these ants are the most complex social creatures other than humans. They live in large underground colonies with up to 8 million members and are farmers skillfully cultivating a fungus from the leaves they collect. One of the principal characteristics humans and ants share is their socialness, and at the heart of a social species is communication. Leafcutter ants developed an interactive network form of communication that rivals the internet and predates it by millions of years. They constantly converse with one another using pheromones, sound, and vibration. They're nature's ultimate mobile communication devices. Without central command, millions of ants coordinate their behavior to create and sustain massive societies. The accumulation of their small gestures produces enormous complexity. They also wage brutal wars. The eerie parallels to human society are what inspire the project. Excuse me. I worked with atacephalotes. She was my favorite. She was amber and more translucent. And Atta columbica, who is more matte and magenta. In 4 chapters, the Leafcutter Project accentuates the ingenuity of these miniature yet mighty civilizations that inhabit the neotropical rainforest. The work focuses on 4 supposedly unique human traits: language, ritual, art, and war. And the narrative aims to blur the boundaries between culture and nature. In We Rule, which you saw at the beginning, the ants carry language that is in keeping with their dominant status in the forest. As the principal herbivore, leafcutter ants are a key species, and like us, influence the grand structure of all other biological systems in their habitat. This piece is called Colonize the Earth, and it's a 20-foot-long photographic scroll of the ants descending a tree at night, carrying pieces of leaves and also letters in their mandibles. The title reflects the ants' ecological power. They can strip a tree in a single night and repeat this night after night. In this installation, the scroll is unrolled 11 feet. Leafcutter ants harvest from a wide variety of plants, and this gave me latitude in what I could offer them to form the narratives of the work. The ants cut vegetation from high in the forest canopy and carry the pieces in their mandibles across the forest floor, traveling up to 100 yards on trails meticulously cleaned by them. I wanted to transform this green parade into a pageant, into a celebration of color. I gathered flowers in the forest and offered them to a colony. The ants readily took them, and like a Balinese festival or a pagan rite, they traversed the dark forest floor with their special offerings and brought them back to their underground colony and laid them at the feet of a golden idol. Here is an installation of the Adoration of the Golden Ant, surrounded by 2 offerings. This is the Akron Art Museum. One winter, a large colony harvested from a brightly colored plant that had stripes and spots. The pieces of leaves the ants cut look like art, like tiny abstract expressionist paintings. It was art on parade across the forest floor. Who is to say ants are indifferent to the aesthetics of the leaves they carefully select, cut, and carry home? Leafcutter ants are one of the few species to wage organized warfare against their own kind. They even have different strategies depending upon the location and severity of the war. Ant wars are hard to find in the forest because the battles spread out into the leaf litter. In order to film these mini gladiators, I placed small white plastic sheets around the area they were fighting. During the day, the ants went about their orderly business cutting leaves, quickly habituating to the new surfaces and ignoring them. But every night, the bellicose colony attacked its neighbor. Though many ants were slaughtered, the colonies did not fight to the death. 3 weeks into the war, the aggressor called it quits. I thought I would show you the war video. In many ways, it's a bookend to We Rule. The propensity to declare the former often leads to the latter. In closing, I've worked with a variety of mediums, from engineering to painting to photography, video, drawing, and sculpture. Yet my artistic career has been focused on one central issue: how to confront and challenge our human-centric point of view. Humanity has been drawing lines in the sand forever. Maybe now, at the dawn of the Anthropocene, is a good time to reconsider those lines and what lives on the other side. Thank you.